Welcome to Spark Sessions. I'm your host, Sonya Locke, and this girl is on fire. Today's guest has spent more than 3 decades in hospitality, moving from the front lines of hotel operations to the rooms where deals are made, capital is raised, and ownership is decided. Mary Beth Cutshall is the Chief Growth Officer of Vision Hospitality Group, where she leads growth strategy, acquisitions, development, capital partnerships, and brand building. Across her career, she has had her hand in more than 1.3 billion in hospitality and real estate projects, helped grow one company's revenue by more than 300%, and added more than 90 properties to another's portfolio. She founded Amara Capital to help bring women and minority investors into hotel ownership, a table where they have historically been underrepresented. Through her leadership with the Castile Project, AHLA's Foundation Forward, and Marriott Women Serving Women, she not only is building hotels, she is building access. Mary Beth is proof that real leadership is not just about getting a seat at the table. It's about opening the doors wider for the people coming next. Mary Beth, thank you so much for being on our show. You're just such an inspiration. You show not just how to lead women, but you are really propelling them forward, and you're bringing them into rooms that they were not invited, and just everything that you've done to give back to those coming. You are the epitome of really what Spark Sessions is about. So thank you so much. I cannot wait to hear your lessons and your story. It's just going to be wonderful.
Thank you for having me, Sonya.
Cheers. So I like to start everything with kind of roots to rise, because I think that really that's really where we find our inner voice that gets us to where we are. And we don't think about it sometimes, like where we came from and how that really shaped us. But everybody knows the deal maker that's in the room now. But tell me a little bit more about like growing up and where you came from and how you got started on this path.
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of zigzag. I grew up in New Hampshire. I'm the youngest of 4 children. My father was a commercial airline pilot, and my mother was a stay-at-home mom. And with my father being in the travel industry, I started to get the taste of travel and, in a sense, hospitality, because we were able to travel non-revenue. Back in the day, it was a little bit different than it is now. So I definitely was fortunate and very grateful to have been able to travel a lot of exciting places. We had a place in the Virgin Islands growing up, so we would go there a lot because my dad would only work some days of the month, and some days he'd fly, and he had that freedom of an airline pilot where he didn't work 5 days in a typical corporate job. So that, I know for sure, planted seeds for me about my love for travel without me really realizing it. I grew up as a tomboy. I have an older sister, an older brother, and another older sister. So when we got split up for chores, my sisters would be in the house with my mom doing more of the inside stuff, and I was out with my father and my brother, you know, whether it's like stacking wood or taking care of some of the farm animals that we had. I was kind of a tomboy outside. I think my parents knew that was more of an environment where I was more comfortable. Plus I just, loved the farm and just running around and doing stuff like that. So I think that had an impact on where I would go in my future because of that fluidity and that movement. Versus being more stationary and sitting down and doing stuff. I was always fairly athletic and curious, and kind of wanted to explore the world and life, both through the experiences of travel, but also the farm and doing all those things that little girls typically weren't exposed to. And I think that's what started me really kind of not seeing myself as limited in what I could do, was because I was already outside the box with a lot of my weekend chores. But I didn't grow up in a corporate family. You know, my dad being an airline pilot previously in the Air Force. It's not like he came from corporate America and passed down he wasn't a CEO or an SVP or something like that. He, had a very unusual life back in the day. He's 92 now. So back then when he was flying, it was like very luxurious to be an airline pilot.
Yes.
And so, our lifestyle because of that was a little bit unique to my friends, where their father was going to work into an office. But I think because of that also too, I had to really also figure out my own path along the corporate direction and journey. I had to learn on my own. There wasn't a lot of mentoring with that sort of thing. So growing up in New Hampshire and spending a lot of time in the Virgin Islands was a dichotomy in many ways.
I was about to say,
Yeah.
how did that also shape your perspective? Because you weren't like just going there for vacation.
Right.
You were really part of that community.
Yes. It was pretty cool because it was New England, and then it was the West Indian. And in one place I was a majority, and another place I was a minority. And I think it does open up one's eyes about how big the world is and how many cultures there are out there and different ways of living and perspectives. And it didn't create like I said earlier, like a box for me of who I was and what I was about, because I was exposed to plantains and beef patties and then lobster and clams and things like that. And I also saw that freedom that my parents had with my father's profession, about being able to live a life that is your own in many ways, your own path. And I think it was also a little bit of a different journey for me than a lot of my friends at school. So in some ways I felt like an oddball, if that makes sense, because I was living a life in a family environment that wasn't really the norm. So I had to get comfortable.
New Hampshire is a very small community. It's a small town, so it's like...
It was Northampton, New Hampshire. It's a very small community, that's for sure. But there are also hotels there in the coastline, and kind of how we got into the business was my high school boyfriend at the time, who is a hotel developer and owner today. We dated for a couple of years in high school, and we're still very good friends. And his family had a hotel on Prouts Neck, Maine, and that's really how I got exposed to the hotel business. Was they had opened it up for the summer, and I'd go visit him, and it was just, wow, this is such a cool world. This beautiful old New England Cape hotel that's open up in the summer, and the bakery and just the whole experience of the grounds and sort of thing. And I think that is when a seed got planted for me about maybe possibly being in the hotel business. And gave me that exposure, like of not only the front of the house, but the back of the house through a family that were owners. I thought I wanted to be an airline pilot like my dad.
Did you ever get your license?
I didn't get my license, but he taught me to fly planes when I was 10 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we had a little Cessna 150. And that's the thing with my family and with my father, just, flying planes at 10, certified diver at 17, windsurfing in the Caribbean. In my teen years, I was skiing at 3 years old. I was exposed to these winter sports and these summer sports and all these unique experiences. So I thought I would maybe follow the same path. But my father discouraged me from it because I think he was just, pretty bored with being in a cockpit, but was so senior. And it was when I got exposed to my high school boyfriend's family's business. I realized, hey, I could do something else in travel, and that could be hospitality. And that's when that light bulb kind of went off for me.
Well, and you say a lot about experiences, and you definitely had a lot of experiences growing up as a child between not only all the things you were involved in, but living in two different worlds.
Yes.
And I think hospitality really does. It's about experiences. It's not just the hotel, but it's the experience. What were some of the, I guess, can you think of any of the early moments or early experiences where you really got the understanding of hospitality and how you could shape that for other people in the world?
I think spending so much time in the Caribbean, in the Virgin Islands, and you can imagine hospitality is really the backbone of the economics for a Caribbean island. You know, people come to the island, there are hotels, the restaurants, even the shops down in Charlotte Amalia. So I was constantly surrounded by tourism and hospitality through that exposure. For me, I think recognizing that I was living in it when I was spending time there, but also in New England in the summertime. The coastline of New Hampshire is very small, actually. It's only a few miles. It's not very big, but how the towns would come alive in the summertime and then they'd shut down in the winter. So it was always kind of around me. I was, 13, riding my bike to Northampton or Hampton Beach to, bus tables for my first job. And that's kind of what you did in the summertime. If you were a kid, you'd work at one of the beach restaurants or something like that. So it just seemed to always be in my life some way or another. And I just found it to be exciting to be meeting different people. And I've always loved sociology and history. So all the people watching and the different folks that show up that are, not the townies, that are the visitors, and they come back every summer. And there's an energy to hospitality that I found kind of interesting and electrifying in many ways. Never boring, and people are fascinating. And for me, it was just an environment that I was kind of around.
And then you went into hospitality management, and your education is at UNLV,
That's
which is,
right.
of course, the biggest probably hospitality management school there is in the country, very far away from the Virgin Islands and New Hampshire.
Intentional.
But you talk a lot about like how you had to create your own corporate path.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about coming out of school and then, getting into hospitality for real. Like what were you first drawn to? What was important to you? And then how did you get to where you are now, which is such a big leap.
I was first drawn to the industry just because I wanted to be in travel, right? And it seemed like a natural thing to do. And back when I was applying to schools, and I actually went to University of New Hampshire for about a year and a half, and then I did a summer program in Switzerland at the hotel school in Lausanne.
Oh, wow.
Met students from UNLV, and then wound up transferring out to UNLV halfway through my sophomore year. And for me, it was really kind of having another experience, not going to university 20 minutes from where I was raised, and just having this adventure. Like, sure, why not go to Vegas? It's got a great hotel school. And I think I was just driven off the curiosity and the adventure of trying this experience. My parents were not excited about it. They were not excited of their daughter, who was 19, transferring from New Hampshire 20 minutes from home and then going out to Vegas. But they kind of trusted me, and out-of-state tuition wasn't that expensive back in the day. And it just kind of took off from that. But when I was entering university in the hotel program, I didn't really know much more than being in the front of the house, right? So you're in operations or food and beverage or something along that line. I wasn't really exposed in any way to the tail that wags the dog, which is the real estate and investment. That wasn't even on my radar, even though my parents had taken apartment buildings and done condominiums, and I had listened to real estate at the kitchen table and watched them kind of do that side hustle, and had an interest in real estate just growing up. I never associated it with a hotel business. I always thought about the service side of it, the operation side of it. So that's just naturally where I thought I would go. And it's like any of us, we find our paths through opening up a door, which might lead to another door, which leads to another door. And for me, it was, doing an internship on St. John, which was once the Rock Resort Hotel, and doing that for summer in front office, and then doing a food and beverage internship at Marriott Crystal City Gateway the following summer, and then eventually going into out of college, going into operations and like front office sort of thing, and realizing, okay, that's not really scratching the itch, right? And then getting into sales and marketing, and then being property regional, and then corporate level. And there's a whole other chapter with all that. But that's a great thing about this industry. You can kind of, once you get in, there's so many different paths. But I would say when I was in university, in school, I wasn't as aware of all the paths back then. It was, the industry was very different than it is now. It's much more fragmented than it used to be. And, I just kept, following my gut about where my interests lay, and exploring what the hospitality industry has to offer.
Well, it sounds like, like from your background, you were kind of taught to take the chance and take experiences. Like
Yes.
You really sought out experiences and sought out these new adventures. So when you were with Marriott for a long time, you rose way up to the top of the corporate ladder in terms of operations and service. But when was your aha moment that got you more onto the strategy and the ownership type side or the investment side?
So I tried these various disciplines and got promoted, and then would pivot and get a new opportunity. And I look back at my career and realize I was always throwing myself in the deep end of the pool even before I was ready, which I don't think is stereotypical of a lot of women. I think a lot of women have to feel like they're 100% ready and being wooed for an opportunity. I think men are much more apt to want to take that new challenge before they're even ready or anyone asks. And I just had a tendency to be that way a little bit. But I think mine was more the curiosity than anything that was driving me to do that. And so I've had stepped away from the industry. And Cheryl and I talked about this, a mutual friend of ours. We had a very similar situation when I had my first child. I stepped away from the industry, had not been in the real estate or transactional side of it, and was doing some consulting. So I could be at home and be with my firstborn, my daughter, and then subsequently had my son, and was kind of side hustling and finding a way to stay in the industry a little bit, and also overlapping with other industries while also being with my children as much as I could. And I wound up meeting a woman at a previous company, and she knew about my background, where I'd actually even gotten to a corporate level with what became Starwood Lodging. Before my kids were born, I was overseeing sales and marketing for the portfolio, met Barry Sternlicht, taught him what RevPAR meant. And that's when Starwood really took off. And that's about the time I had my first child. So when I met this other woman after my kids had been born and was ready to kind of get back out there, and told her about my background here in Atlanta at Hotel Equity, she said, well, gosh, I'd love to try to get you in our organization. So I came in to the organization back in kind of sales and marketing, a few steps down from where I had previously been. And this is the story or the example that many people say or tell about sometimes you take a couple steps back to catapult forward. Right. And I was willing to do that because I was still trying to balance being a young mother, being there for my children, getting back in the industry, not knowing really where I wanted to go, but having done a lot in operations and just kind of feeling like I wasn't finding the right seat on the bus for me that was challenging me consistently with what I needed. And it was through that company at Hotel Equities where an opening came available for development. And I applied for it, had no experience whatsoever. The CEO saw something in me, and he said, I'll make you our corporate director of business development. And that was my first door open into the transactional side of the business. And once again, I threw myself right in the deep end of the pool. Like, I'll figure it out. I'll find a way to understand this particular discipline within the industry and do my best. And we wound up having a great run and growing the company and evolving. And it was just by happenstance, because I was actually thinking about possibly leaving the industry. I just couldn't find the thing that I really loved. Yeah, I would do it for a bit and get promoted, but I just kind of was getting bored, quite frankly. And I do think it comes down to the real estate and the investment side of it is really that right seat for me, where it brings all these different pieces of what I've done, how I've lived my life, but it also connects me with my passion, which is investments, real estate, capital structure, wealth creation, and it parlayed all those pieces together.
And also part of creating those experiences that keep people traveling back.
Yes.
And you had so many good lessons on that. I mean, like the one stepping back to kind of open up your eyes to where you could go.
Yeah.
And then two, I think that a lot of us have navigated being mothers,
yes.
you know, and how that actually helps our professional life just as much.
Absolutely.
But taking those lessons
yes.
and everything. So, I mean, you've grown so far within like the real estate development. It's not just like small. I mean, you added 90 properties to one of the company, 300% to the other one. What brought you, and then you opened your own capital group, which I want to kind of talk about as well. But then now with what you're on the C-suite, which is also very unusual with Vision Hospitality. But what got you into this passionate position that you're at now? And what's your vision for next, I guess?
So for my career, I went from like a director of business development to a vice president to a senior vice president to executive vice president and a chief development officer with another company after Hotel Equities. And I was with HVMG for about 10 years and left that company in 21 to take Amara Capital that I had already started as a vehicle for women to start investing in the deals that we were doing at HVMG. And I decided to dedicate myself full time to Amara Capital because I wanted to spend more time overseas with investments. And the company that I was with, they had their model. It was US. It was very specific, respect that. But it is, I was ready to do something new and something bigger. And that's really what became the full-time birth of Amara Capital, where I took it over to Europe and started investing in Portugal and bringing investors over and finding investments for them. What drove that probably was my curiosity about investing globally and not being limited to the experience that I had previously had in the US only, having the opportunity to do due diligence and feasibility and understand real estate in another country, creating a development company there, bringing investors the laws. And I just saw so much opportunity in Portugal. And since that time, the real estate has gone through the roof since 21. I mean, I think last year was close to 23% appreciation. I mean, Portugal is like on everybody's mind now, but 10 years ago, it wasn't. So I just saw that was happening. And it was also the lifestyle of being able to spend time there and discover and learn about a new country and culture and make friends there. It was just doing something new, I guess, and expanding my skill set and my experience and the challenge.
Are a curious person.
I am.
You used to really take every challenge. It's
I haven't taken a lot, yes. Some were good, some not so good. And some I've said no to, but I think life is very short and it's worth giving your best and trying if you think it's something that really resonates with you. And I have a very strong gut. And I've followed that gut throughout my life and throughout my career. And sometimes it didn't make sense about what direction it was sending me. But once I kind of got there, I understood the why behind it. What I could be clear about what was resonating and why I was glad I took that step and opened that door.
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's so many lessons to unpack. I think that that's actually what really leads us to the next area is talking about those challenges and how some of those really are what makes us to where we're at and help us grow and help us learn from them. And I think that's what so many people need to understand is not being scared.
That's right.
You have to almost live scared, right?
Exactly.
I mean, with someone as curious as you, and as you talk about the zigzags, I am sure that there are so many times in your life that you have had really big challenges. I mean, you seek challenges.
I do.
But let's talk about some of those challenges and not just in terms of career growth, but also personal sacrifices. Like I guess, the most pivotal seasons that you've seen in your life with your career trajectory and your personal trajectory? Like, let's talk about some of those burns, I guess.
There's always a sacrifice, right? When we choose to go down a certain path, and juggling motherhood and career, you have to be really clear about what your priorities are. I think we can't do it all. I do think we can write the book, but I think it's in chapters. And, telling women they can have it all at the same moment, I think is very difficult to accomplish unless you have a lot of support and a lot of help. So for me, being clear about what were my top priorities, obviously my 2 kids, definitely my career, and my closest friends. But there are certain things that I wouldn't be able to participate with, or certain other friends that were more in the peripheral that I really enjoyed and liked, but I just didn't have the bandwidth, or I just didn't have the time. And traveling is very demanding. And when you're traveling as a mom with young children, you have to sometimes substitute working at night because you want to make that play or that assembly or that birthday party or whatever during the day. So you have to give up maybe personal time for yourself, whether it's reading or creating a hobby or following through that hobby or whatever it might be. I just don't think we can do it all. And I am fortunate that I've always been really clear about my North Star, what was most important to me, being my family and being my children and doing the best I can with what I juggled. And I did get a lot of personal and social satisfaction from our industry because it is so socially oriented to begin with, especially in the real estate investment side. We have all these investment conferences, and you get to know people not only from the capital side or the debt side or the brand side, but designers and other service providers, and they're like-minded and they become your friends. So in many ways, our industry is special that we have this built-in social network of people that you meet through business, but they also become very close friends and confidants and mentors or champions or what have you. So I'm not sure that would work as well in some other industries where you're in a cubicle and you're just punching away. But with what I did, I was able to feed that a lot. Challenges are something that I've definitely dealt with. I have been guilty of underestimating what I've signed up for and the work that goes into it. Like, sure, I can do that. And sure, that sounds exciting. But not always, and when I was younger, not always factoring in what it would take to be able to do it well and excel. But I will say I always stuck with things is the grit, it's the perseverance, it's the personal satisfaction of doing a good job and not letting anybody down and trying to give it my all. That personal pride of work well done, adding value, I think is a cornerstone towards anybody's success. We are able to create value, so we're able to grow our careers and have those opportunities. There was definitely, in my career, there were times I was naive about how things worked and just assumed that it might be a straight path or it might be an easy path, and jumping into that deep end of the pool, not really understanding what it would take to get that buoyancy and master that opportunity that I was working on. But it's the intellectual stimulation, I think, that really always kind of gets me excited. I could be at a party with friends and be in the corner chatting with someone. If they bring up real estate, I would be very excited to talk about that. So that's when you kind of know you're in your space. But there were definitely chapters I felt like I was maybe not as multi-dimensional as I would have liked to have been, but that was just a choice I had to make.
Did you feel like you had, like the hospitality industry is still a very male-dominated industry, even though we think that it's not, but it is.
Yeah.
And trying to navigate that balance, which we all know is not really a balance. Did you ever feel like you had to try to prove yourself or almost shut down some part of yourself in order to get ahead? And then how'd you navigate that to give your own boundaries that, hey, this is my North Star. This is what I'm interested in, but I'm still going to be at the top of that food chain.
I always felt I had to prove myself. And I think in the beginning it was a little being naive that I had to, that realizing very quickly I needed to. I needed to figure a way to be successful, to succeed, to add that value my way. And very used to being underestimated and recognizing that I couldn't let that stop me. I had to show that I could execute, that I could put that deal together, bring that new business, that new opportunity, build that relationship. And I'll be frank, I don't think it's really ever stopped, quite frankly. The higher I've gotten on the ladder, I think it's actually gotten more challenging because there are so few of us that are doing what I do, that are women, that have been doing it for quite a while. And there's more judgment, the higher you get up, because it is definitely still a very male-dominated space in investments and real estate.
Especially on investment.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I've really had a cornerstone in my career of building relationships, just one person at a time, authentically, sincerely. And that does pay dividends after a while because, people become friends and there's a commonality and you have history. And the industry is quite small as well. So those become building blocks that help with that. But there's always new groups coming in, and having to overcome that challenge has been a theme throughout my career. But as my skill set began to get deeper and I was growing my confidence through proving myself, like I did it, I execute on that, I know how to do it now. That helped me care less about what people think in some ways and just be in the zone of, okay, you got this, you know how to do it. And if you're not sure, a resource that you could go to, or you'll figure it out. You remind yourself that you've done it before. But I do think there's still some unconscious bias and some straight up bias still that we always have to deal with. And you just have to be resistant to that and not let anyone really kind of stop you, to the best of your ability, that one can do that. It is something that I hope will be different for younger women. And we see a lot of women in our industry in the front of the house, in the operations side of it, and HR and marketing and sales and marketing. So women dominate actually a higher percentage, I think, in those disciplines in our industry. But slowly we're starting to see it in the real estate investment side. I have also learned through mentoring and championing and being involved in advocacy that there are many women that self-select them. They self-select out. And I've known women that have made that choice because it was the right choice for them. They had higher priorities than their career. And I didn't always understand that before, but I've seen that and I respect that. And then I've seen, women who perhaps didn't see anybody that looked like them. Right. And then once they meet you, or once they meet somebody else and they see there's a path that has gotten a little bit more believable and doable. But I still think it's still something in the environment that we need to work on and support each other on. It's not exactly where it should be. There still aren't enough chief investment officers and chief growth officers. And I don't think it's, there's a moat where women are being kept out. I do think it's more complicated than that.
Well, I think some of it is the self-doubt too, like you said. Yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, you had to be the only one sitting at the table at many times when you broke into the investment side.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you navigate that? How do you overcome, okay, they don't all look like me. They don't have the same understanding, but how do you have your voice heard? Or did you have self-doubt, and how did you overcome that at any of those points?
I'm like anyone else. I've had self-doubt throughout my life for all sorts of things. But ironically, when I was in high school, I did professional acting. And just like when I took typing in high school, best class I ever did. I think the professional acting and choosing not to make a career out of that, but I think it made me very comfortable being in a room and presenting and speaking. And it taught me a skill set that I didn't recognize when I was doing it, that later in my career would pay dividends beyond my imagination. So I think that took a lot of the doubt of, hey, I can be in this room and I can present this model or this deal thesis or explain to potential family office or capital group why we think this could be a great opportunity. Like I've always been kind of comfortable with that because of those steps that I did in exploring when I was younger. So that to me wasn't as much the challenge with the self-doubt. It was probably as you take on more, taking on more responsibility was the, okay, you have different personalities to work with, leading teams, different challenging environments like COVID, and navigating those sort of challenges for any kind of real estate deals. Sometimes that was where like the self-doubt would come from or present itself, because it was such an unknown and never experienced before. I would say like I always had a pretty innate confidence that drove me when it came to being in the room. What I didn't understand was why there weren't others in the room. And it feels like those doors opened for me somewhat naturally. And I don't know if it was me kind of stepping in, like we talked about earlier, where I think I maybe took on more of a male perspective of why not me versus I have to be perfect before I do it. That helped with that situation. And that may come back to my childhood of being out in the yard and doing the chores with my dad and my brother and, not being like the others, I'm not in the house polishing the silverware or whatever. Like there was always space for me to be different, if that makes sense. So being different and being the only one never felt completely uncomfortable. And sometimes there's ways that you can add value or perhaps accomplish something in a different way. I think I negotiate differently. I think I realized pretty early on with one of my first companies when I got in this position where the CEO wanted me in the hard negotiating rooms. He said the environment changed when I was in the room, how they negotiated.
And which way?
He just said they were nicer. That it presented like they approached the negotiations differently because I was in the room. It may have been, it wasn't a bunch of guys. It may have been how maybe I went about trying to find the win-win. I wasn't playing into some big ego win.
Right.
I was listening more than I was talking. I was starting to find my legs as a strategic thinker, hearing what's important to them, repeating that to them being heard, them feeling connection, really driving the win-win. And I guess I saw the energy change. I saw the win starting to happen. So I felt kind of comfortable, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. We talk a lot about leading with empathy.
Yeah.
And how that really actually can be the strategic, win. That is what it is when you have that listening and everything. And I mean, like another one, which I'm sure was a challenge, but I want to first say thank you for starting Amara Group. You walked away from a very successful career to start something with a purpose of not just, I want to do this, but you were bringing women and minorities into the room and actually creating that space. But what were some of the big challenges on that, and how did you have the guts to do that?
Well, my values are really core for me for everything. It's really driven my direction and who I work with and who I don't work with. And it's gotten clearer and clearer and clearer as I've gotten older. So I really thought it needed to be done. I thought somebody had to do it. And if not me, then who's going to do it?
Yeah.
Right? Like, who's going to make space for women to have a conduit for deals that aren't circulated?
Right.
You know, where there's great IRRs, internal rate of returns, and cash on cash. I mean, what you see with a lot of successful hotel groups is they just get rinse and repeat investors because they're doing so well. And there's not a lot of room for these new folks to come in, and definitely not a lot of room for women and minorities to come in. They're just not in the room. So I kind of felt like it wasn't changing at all through the years I was doing it. And here I was, you know, finding opportunities, sourcing, modeling, due diligence, capital conversations. I could create this conduit and make people aware that I can open a door if they were interested in that. And it just excited me to try to be a part of change, which is when Castell was formed and Peggy came to me. We're riding bikes one day, Peggy Berg, and she said, I've got this idea. I think our industry needs to do something different. We need to help women get up the ladder and get into the C-suite, and we need to do special training and events and leadership and mentoring and championing. And I'm like, I'm in. Just like, and then I was the vice chair of that, and that eventually was the seed of AHLA Forward. That became and I was part of that negotiations when AHLA was talking to Castell, because it was all volunteer. And Peggy and I were talking like, this isn't sustainable. We all have lives and jobs, and we really need a platform. And that's when that conversation happened with AHLA, and it kind of got absorbed and became that seed and really changed the industry of what was possible. Getting women on podiums and thought leadership, and other women seeing what was possible, seeing someone that looked like them, and having those opportunities to be on a panel and speak, and what it's like to do public speaking and be asked. And maybe they're not typically asked because they're more demure, introverted, quiet. They're not promoting themselves, and give specific training just for women to achieve and to grow and to develop their career. So I've always been driven to try to make a difference wherever I can. And to me, it's exciting to see that creation and that evolution be part of something, just that little piece. Because once again, if I don't do it, who's going to do it?
Well, I mean, you have done so much, and that is that really kind of leads us to really more on society, because you're a perfect example of somebody that does go out of their way to make that change, not just talk about it or not complain about it, but actually make that change and make those paths forwards. But, I think we need to, that's one of, I guess, the purposes as well, as we look at what should we all be doing, or how can we make those little steps, even if it's helping just 10 people versus you can't change the whole world.
That's
but
right.
I think that's what really leads to how do we as a society and how do we as an individual take that leap. So, your story is so much about a much bigger conversation, right? And we've touched on a little bit, but I think this is part where kind of the burning question, and we've touched on why, the hospitality industry and many industries are powered by women, right? They are that front line. They are in so many different segments, but there's such a minority on the ownership side or the investment and the table that makes the big decisions, right? And how do we, I guess, foster that change? Women make up 59% of the hospitality workforce, represent 69% of the hospitality management graduates today, but they only hold 1 in 4 at the C-suite level. And I think ownership is, I believe, less than 13% of the industry. So we're almost 60, 70% of the workforce, but we're like 4% to 6% of the ones making the decisions.
Right.
So how do we foster, I guess, with such a significantly low advantage, how do we help build that? And do you think the industry is ready yet? Or do you think, what can we do as other women, or what can we do as society to help change that narrative and push those numbers?
I think the industry is definitely ready. I think there's a few things going on. Just like I didn't know much about the ownership side and the real estate side and transaction side back in the day when I was in college and graduating, I still think that is the case, though I think we've made a lot of improvement that way. I think there's been a lot more demonstration of women having ownership and those women being highlighted. I can think of a number of young women that have done that over the past several years, but I don't think it's enough. I do think that brands have done or made an effort to try to support that with some incentives that they can offer. But there's so much between getting an incentive, buying or building a hotel, and all the steps you have to get there. So I think we're ready, and I think there's a lot of opportunity still. I think it's an overall bigger challenge about women understanding the importance of comfort in numbers and P&Ls and wealth creation, that mindset of the importance of creating wealth. It's something I talk to my daughter specifically, always encouraging her to think about having her own money, creating her own wealth, and not being dependent on somebody for that she is independent and taking care of that on her own. And I think we need to talk more about how do we help women understand the importance of creating wealth and how they can start to do that. There's a lot now more on social media, young people trying to give tips and ideas, but it's quite overwhelming if you didn't grow up with that, right? So it's much easier if you have a family where that was taught at the kitchen table, or there are folks that can help you get to the next step. So I want women to know that there's much more than just working in the business. There is the opportunity of investing. I want them to also understand it's their responsibility to be thinking about their future financially and building towards that and educating themselves and not leaning in, but not leaning away from numbers and a profit and loss statement. There's so much online that you can access to chip away at it, just like learning a language. I was trying to learn Portuguese. It's very, very difficult. So embracing that and recognizing it is an important part of one's health, financial health, just like physical health. And we have to teach ourselves and we have to learn that. Also, too, you don't have to be the hotel owner. You don't have to write 7-figure checks. You can be a piece. You can be part of a limited partner. You can write a smaller check. You can start small. So you can invest a little bit of money with either an open fund or, like our group, we have friends and family that invest smaller amounts and even large amounts, and they can be in ownership and have a piece of it. They can learn what a K1 is. They can learn about getting quarterly reports and reading, top line and bottom line and understanding the mechanics behind real estate investment. And I think it is definitely something women should embrace and can do, but I think we need to have more exposure to it. And I think we have to encourage women to see themselves in that place of being able to drive their own wealth creation and giving the tools and the paths of how to do that. Because if someone is from a place or background where they weren't exposed to that in any way, they're just not even sure where to start. So I think, there's things that we can do to help develop that.
I think that's brilliant. I mean, I haven't really heard anybody give some good strategic advice, but I think that is good strategic advice. Looking, taking it as an investment, learning, understanding your own personal P&L and not just like working in the same position, but how do you kind of create your own future?
Yeah, that definitely. Yeah. And that, there's sometimes in some ways, there's a lot of value in just being part of the limited partnership and not having the day-to-day headaches of being the general partner that gets the calls, that has to deal with the problems. It's a nice way to be invested and have certain benefits without all the responsibility that comes with being a GP or general partner. And I do think that, I think there's many things that women can do of coming together and networking and sharing opportunities about different people working on deals and raising capital, and having that conversation like you're doing with many of your guests about, tell me about how you started and how did you build it, and looking back so people can see that they can do something similar.
Yeah. Actually, one of my guests who's brilliant, Karen Cope, she's actually part of a group that just founded Women at the Cap Table. And it's a group of women, small investments, but it's just putting women at the cap table and a group that's together that can share this. And it's great. I mean, it's open and it's getting new, younger people into it. So that way they also understand how they can be a part of it. And I think that sometimes banding together is good.
Exactly.
You know? And there's nothing wrong with that.
And passing along these best practices and what we learned and what we didn't learn, what worked out well and what didn't work well, and in passing that along to the next generation, creating that space for those conversations.
Well, I mean, that does go into our very most important segment of Spark Sessions, which is passing the torch, because that's really what this is all about, is hopefully building that next generation of leaders. And I mean, I believe you have created quite a legacy already. I know you have, but you've done so much work with helping the next generation of women go up, and you know, obviously with your daughter and stuff. But what kind of advice do you want to give them, or what do you want that you have done to help propel the next generation to move forward, or piece of advice that you would give them?
Probably that, like, no one's going to do it for you. You've got to do it for yourself. And why not you? Why, you know, what is drawing one to a certain thing or a certain experience or certain job? You deserve it as much as anybody else. And finding that tribe, those people that can support you, super, super important. And, you know, you talked about the self-doubt. I think it's very normal. I think everybody has imposter syndrome, self-doubt, but life is short. I mean, go for it. Why not? What's the worst thing that can happen? There's a mistake, there's a failure, but quite frankly, that's where we learn the most, I believe.
Yes.
I've never met a successful person that hasn't had failures and setbacks and challenges. And don't you want your life to be the most amazing life it can be? And, you know, just grab it and go for it. And if it doesn't work out, you know, my favorite saying, a Japanese proverb, is knock down 7, get up 8. You just get back up again. You know, every day's a gift. Every opportunity we are here to make a difference, create value, do something we love, work with people we really love, enjoy working with in an industry like the hospitality industries. I mean, we're so lucky. So, you know, see the possibilities versus what are the obstacles, and go for it. You know, make it the best it can be.
And I love the why not.
Yeah,
why not me?
Why not
Instead
me?
of asking why me.
Exactly.
I think that's a perfect way of looking at it. And and you're right. You always have to be. And it's a kind of the whole nature of your Roots to Rise, right? Is the love of experience.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter whether that experience ends good or bad, it's an experience that's shaped who you are.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I kind of got to believe intuitively we sense and we follow. Listen to that, because I think it's taking us to where we need to be and what we need to be doing.
So if you could boil it down to one truth that you could tell the next generation, when you walk into some of these rooms of future hospitality leaders that you've helped build and stuff like that, what's the one truth that you would tell them to live their life, or to harness right now when they walk into a room?
I think confidence is humility, and you can be confident and humble at the same time, because I think when you feel comfortable in your own skin and your abilities and overcoming setbacks, and know that you're driven, like curiosity, intellectually, that sort of thing, you can be humble at the same time. It's hard to pick one. I do think like there's something about relationships and connecting with people and building on that, because nobody gets anywhere by themselves. There's no successful person that, I mean, whether it's the streets we have or the public transportation, whatever it might be, we all get there because of other people that have supported us one way or another. So be that person that supports, and likewise, really create that community that supports you. But There's so many things I would share. It's
No,
hard to
those
pick
are
one.
all great. I love the humble and confidence, and also, like you said, building that community.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so key.
Yeah.
I've always believed I don't need to be able to do everything.
No.
I need to surround myself with the people that can.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good leader, actually, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's perfect. You give so much to others. You help mentor others. You help lead. You continuously take challenges on. But what about what fuels Mary Beth? Someone with a fire that burns so bright as you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep your fire burning?
Sleep.
Something.
It's my magic pill. Sleep, sleep, sleep. Big believer in sleep. Yeah. Getting a good night's sleep is like solves everything.
Well, that's really good.
Yeah.
I actually I always joke with my friends because I have several people, well, including Sophia, that loves to sleep. And I always say, well, beautiful people love to sleep. I mean, that's why it's called beauty sleep.
It's so true.
But what about some of the other things? What are some experiences, I guess, or experiences that really, I don't know, that touch you, that light you up again, that you've gone through? I guess.
I love a good podcast. I'm always listening to different podcasts where I can learn. I'm a documentary geek. Give me a documentary and I just love it because I'm learning.
What's your best one you've seen so far?
Oh
lately?
Gosh, best one lately?
Or lately?
Lately. I enjoyed the Billy Joel documentary that came out not too long ago. Yeah, it was really good. It was very honest. Like Christy Brinkley and family members were in it. That was good.
I'll check that out.
So also just, my health, eating well, taking care of myself. Very, very important. Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about how you became a pescatarian and how it's increased your health and your energy and everything else. And I think that's important when we grasp those things in our lifestyles that will give us the fuel. Because if we're not fueling ourselves, then we're not going to be helpful to anybody.
Exactly. I really believe nutrition is like the key of health. Like the quality of the food we eat, the portion sizes of it. I do like biometric testing twice a year. I have my Whoop. I'm constantly monitoring myself. And I really am a big believer in doing the best we can because I don't want just lifespan, but I want health span.
Right.
Yeah.
What about, is there any place or any person that helped keep you grounded? Because I like your humble, confident, and that is what I think you are, is you are very grounded and real. Like,
yeah, thank you. I like being out in nature. There's something about the trees, the wind, the ocean, hearing birds chirp, animals, probably going back to my childhood as well. But if I am feeling that my nervous system is agitated or something's off a little bit, if I sit in nature for even a short time, I feel my equilibrium coming back. There's just something about it to me that is very, very grounding. Yeah.
Yeah. I always call it the power of pause. And I get it to where it's like when I'm at very stressful points, I will sometimes you can't always do that, but I will just say, okay, I just need to fly somewhere, sit in front of an ocean and just stare for 2 days.
Yeah.
Don't need to talk to anybody. Don't need to do anything. I just need to.
Oh, the ocean's so therapeutic, isn't
it?
Yeah, I love it.
I come up with my best ideas on those trips.
Yeah.
I usually do. It's usually when I'm the most burned out. I'm like, just have to go escape for just a couple of days and then I'm all good.
I think the best ideas come when we are, when all that stuff's away. That's when the creativity opens up. Yeah. And the ideas open up. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like the same, like when you talk about sleep or like pause, it's like sometimes you're more productive when you are pausing and when you are sleeping, when you do things like that, it makes you a more productive person.
It's counterintuitive, isn't it?
It is. It's true.
It's so true.
Okay, now all the hard stuff's kind of out of the way. We're going to do the really fun one, which is the fire round.
Okay.
First thing that comes to your mind, no right or wrong answers. Okay. It's just quick, rapid fire. Okay. Hotel lobby or rooftop bar?
Hotel lobby, because I think watching people are interesting, and the whole bar thing is not totally my vibe.
Yeah, I call it the parade. That's my favorite, is just watching the parade. It's so fun. Coffee, tea, or cocktails?
Oh, morning coffee, afternoon tea, and cocktails in the evening.
Of course. Window seat or aisle?
It used to be aisle when I was younger, and I was just like, go, go, go. And then I learned about having some more balance, and it's actually a window now. Now it feels like a cocoon. So I've
nice.
switched
I like
on that.
I like that. I know I've always been aisle, but lately I've had window a couple of times.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it more.
Yeah.
Especially on the red eye. 'cause it
Exactly.
really-
International flights is the best.
Oh, yeah. A city that always makes you feel home.
I'd have to say it's Lisbon, Portugal. And I've been there so many times, and I get there, I land, and I'm waiting to get picked up, and there's just an energy, there's a vibe that I feel like I'm at home. I just love, love, love that place. Never get bored.
I'll have to go to Portugal with you because I've
yes,
been
I'd love
wanting
to
to
go
go
with
to
you.
Lisbon forever, and I hate that they don't have direct flights from Atlanta.
I know.
That drives me crazy.
We need
'cause
to
it's
talk
like,
to Delta about
I know.
that.
It's like that is the closest part of Europe, and you
Yeah.
don't have a direct flight. It's like 13 hours to get there. It makes me so
Well, this
upset.
is what I do. I go to Boston, have a lobster roll, and then go, or I go through Amsterdam or Charles de Gaulle.
Yeah, I know.
And then shop.
Yeah, exactly. Amsterdam's one of my favorites too. Best hotel amenity of all time.
Gosh, I would have to say a really quality steamer for my clothes.
Yes.
Not the one with the big thing and you hang it and just it's like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know what you mean. I always call them ask for ones usually when I'm down there, so I love it when you get a really good one.
Yeah.
Favorite way to unwind after a long trip?
Good, come home, good meal, something healthy, and probably Netflix.
That's me too. That's me too. I have to watch before I go to bed. One word for your leadership style.
I would say probably, it's hard for one. Strategic and collaborative, so probably two.
Oh, I like both of those. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
How about strategically collaborative?
I love that.
One thing you're unapologetically saying no to nowadays.
Toxic people.
Yeah, me too. A book every woman should read.
Wolfpack by Abby Wambach is an amazing book, not only for leadership, but for women supporting women. It's really, really brilliant. I highly recommend it.
Ooh,
do you know who Abby Wambach is?
Yes,
yeah,
I do.
Yeah, soccer player, yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Didn't she write another book or no?
I think she did another book, but I haven't read it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
look
great.
At that. I think we should start a book club because
I
we've
love
had so
that.
many people
That'd
have
be
like great books and
Yes.
stuff like that. One thing always in your travel bag.
Always in my travel bag would probably be, I travel with a glass water container that I take everywhere with me. I don't like plastic bottle waters, and I just travel and refill it and all that. That I don't leave home without it.
Oh, that's good. Morning person or night owl?
Morning.
All right, last one. Your go-to song to uplift your mood.
Have you ever heard of the song Unwritten?
Yes. That's a good one.
Yes.
That's a good one for you. That should be your theme song.
Yeah, I love that song.
Oh,
by
man, that really should be your theme song.
Natasha Bedingfield.
Oh,
yeah. And it's an old song, but it's like embrace, feel it, just like let it all happen. And yeah, it's very inspiring to me.
No, that's very good. That is your theme song. That was so fun. You had such great answers.
Thank you.
All right. So final question, I swear.
Okay.
We ask all of our guests, but what, Mary Beth, is your one truth, your spark that keeps you guided every day on how you live, love, and enjoy life?
Wow. One word. It's difficult. If I had to come back to like kind of this core value for me, like over and over and over again, it would probably be integrity. Just, doing the best I can, being the best I can. Know I'm going to make mistakes. Definitely not a perfect person, but the intention is good. But just the integrity of who I am as a person and doing the right thing by people as much as I can, learning, growing, becoming better, training harder to, it probably is integrity.
I think that's great though.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that does guide you.
Yeah.
I mean, Mary Beth, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh,
and thank you
Sonya.
for so much you do. You don't just lead, you open up the access for everyone. And I think that's just it. That is
Thank you.
very
I'm just
good
one of
integrity.
many. One of many. Cheers to you.
But thank you
for
so
having
much.
me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to Spark Sessions. Until next time, keep the fire burning.